anyway, firstly, I'd just like to say thank you very much, ladies, for doing this for us. It's much appreciated. What the aim is for the CDT to get a rough idea of what life was like, and an idea of what life was like when you were young, because you've lived in Arncroach all your days. So what we'd like you to do is maybe introduce yourselves, and then start at the beginning and just tell us a little bit about your parents and a little bit about where you lived in Arncroach, and brothers and sisters, and also a little bit about your school days. Over to you.
Well, I'm Moira Salmond, and I've stayed in the village all my days. And I was born down Carnby Road, next door to where I'm living at the moment, in my mum's house. And what else do you want me to continue?
So what were your parents' names and what jobs did you do?
King.
King.
King is my own name. And well, my dad was a water officer. He actually was in the army, and my mum was in the WAFs.
Is that where they met?
No. My mum, well, she wouldn't stay next door at that time. I mean, latterly they stayed next door to each other in Newton of Balcourt before they got married.
Very good.
But I think Mum and them stayed at Comelo. And then they moved to the Newton.
What about brothers and sisters? Did you
I'm an only child.
Only child.
And went to Arncroach Primary School, then to the Wade Academy.
And with the primary school, how many sort of children were at the primary school in
Well,
those days?
to begin with, there would be maybe about 10. And then advanced to about 20 before I left.
And were they divided into different classes, or was it?
2 classes.
2 classes. And the school across at Carnby, was that a separate school?
Yes.
Yeah. And when you were little, what sort of things did you do to keep yourself occupied? I'm presuming you maybe didn't have, I don't know when telly was invented, but you maybe didn't have telly initially.
No, I didn't have a telly to
radio
begin with,
and things like that.
I like that. Well, we had the park and that.
So has there always been swings in the park?
And well, I had a bicycle. But other than that, we just sort of made our own sort of
entertainment. I think children struggle to do that these days. Don't they? Betty, what about yourself?
I'm Betty Wishart, and I was Betty Christie before I was married. My dad worked down at Balcormo Farm, and we came along there in 1953. Prior to that, we'd been at Balcormo Mains at New Gilson.
Oh yeah.
I started school at New Gilson, and then when we came along here, I was about 9. But now,
where did you live when you first moved here?
Down at Balcormo.
Oh, at Balcormo.
Down there's a big house, and then there's the Greaves house down at the farm. My dad was Grieve down there.
Very good.
So,
and I'm presuming you went to school.
And then we had to walk up to Arncroach School. And then
wouldn't maybe be so many cars back then.
No.
Not going so fast anyway around that corner.
And then I went to the Wade.
And
well,
were you at school at the same time?
We were born in 1944. So
and were you both at school in the same class?
I was
yes,
the same age.
Very good. And do you remember many of the friends from school? Are there many of your friends from school still in this area, or have most of them moved away?
Well,
the
majority of them.
Weed we have our class, we have a class reunion every 6 months.
Oh, very good.
There's not a lot of us now because
No,
we're diminishing all the time. But
and how was Wade then? Was it the same? Like, I know they've got the new building now, but was Wade then similar to what it was before it closed down? Did they have the sort of big gym hall and everything, or was it more the older part of the building?
I mean, there were no swimming pool or anything.
No swimming pool.
There were no swimming pool when
It was
we were
just
there.
starting to, when we left, to sort of
To develop,
There was
yeah.
the quadrangle.
So they had the quadrangle.
Yeah.
My dad tells a story about the quadrangle where he was running, because you weren't allowed to run at school. He ran round the corner into the headmaster and was carrying all the exam papers and sent them flying. So you had 12 of the belt before lunch and 12 of the belt after lunch.
Oh, never.
And maybe got similar when he got home and told my granddad. So what sort of things did you study at the Wade? Did you have set subjects that you studied?
Just the normal things.
just the normal.
We had domestic
Domestic
science.
science.
And with the classes at the Wade, I forgot what I was going to ask you there. I'm a bit rubbish at remembering sometimes. Oh yeah, was it O grades, O level type exams that you had to do, or was it different exams?
No, there were no grades or anything.
No.
In them days.
And did you have exams before you finished school? Did you finish school? I know my dad sort of finished at 16, I think it was 15 or 16.
Oh, yeah, 15.
15 you
15.
finished, yeah. And then after you left school, what did you do?
Well, I went in Adamson's the bakers
I
till I got
first-
married.
when I first left school, I worked in the post office a wee while, and then I went down to Arncroach to work in the shoe shop.
So this is the post office in Arncroach you used to work. Very good.
Which is a house now.
Yes, No, I remember it wasn't a post office, I don't think, when we remember, but I remember going to Granny Clark's to get some sweeties for the children.
It was still a post office at that
Was it still a post office then?
Because I worked in there.
And you got your
I worked there
papers as well.
for a wee while after I was married.
Very good. And so Adam, the bakers that you worked in, is that in Anstruther or up
I
one up in
started in Pittenweem
Pittenweem?
and then I went to Sillardike.
Very good.
We went to cycle up and down every day, rain, hail or shine.
Yeah.
5 miles each way.
Really? Which boys. And like with regards, because I know there used to be a bus twice a day here. Was there a bus service when you were younger, or?
Yes, there was a bus service. I can't mind what year. I think before I finished working in Anstruther, the bus was still, we were still getting a bus, but then I went to St Andrews then to work in Donaldson's a shoe shop, but that was in the 60s obviously, but I just can't remember what year it was.
So were you driving it? You wouldn't be cycling up and down to St Andrews then?
Well, I had a moped
Oh, I remember that.
and it got me from A to B, but it kind of petered out once or twice, so it wasn't all that reliable. But I did get lifts occasionally, but that was the only way of getting
Up
there.
and down, yeah. But miserable
There
in
were
the
no
winter.
buses unless you went out to the likes of well, maybe even down to Anstruther and that, obviously you get a bus, but you had to get there, so you would have to cycle,
Yeah.
you know, to get there.
Yeah, that's good. And
I remember the bus, we always got a bus down to the pictures on a Saturday
right.
night. You were bus
It
down
came up
about
about
tea time and
10 o'clock.
about 10 o'clock. That was.
I've seen us run over the sands. The film was late in case we missed the bus.
And which picture? Because I know there used to be 2 or 3 picture houses round the coast.
Well, that was the Regal
That was the
mainly,
Regal.
but then there was the.
No,
No.
wasn't it the region
What was the one round?
where the Correnny Dairy was?
Just on the
Picture
corner.
on the
Oh
corner.
dear. And of course there was one in Pittenweem, which we went to as well. But
The flea pit.
well, that one in Answer was called the Flea Pit as well, but I can't just find what the name was.
And how often would you go to the pictures? Was that just
Saturday
the
night.
once in a blue moon?
Saturday night, that was sort
On
of
a Saturday night.
an event.
And what about when you were younger? Because I know they used to have sort of children's things on in the afternoon, like when I was little anyway, back in the late 60s. They
Well,
used
we
to
had
have
brownies and we had guides,
Guides,
but
See, our parents didn't, our mums didn't drive.
yeah.
I mean, you were up here and you were stuck. I mean, I'd never seen the Wade till I went to the Wade.
yeah, yeah,
no,
Like a lot
same
of
here.
people.
It was quite alien, really.
yeah, yeah. Lots of people as well. That's what I remember.
Well, this is it.
And I've got another question then I've forgotten again. What about sort of having a phone in your house? Did you have a phone in your house or did you have to rely on the village phone? Or
Well, we didn't get a phone until that would be 63 when I think that would be about 63. In fact, we didn't have a TV at that time.
No,
No.
no.
My granddad did, and he had a phone, but then I think, excuse me, that was through his work, because he was actually a water officer before my dad got his job, so to speak. That I remember he had a phone, one of the ones on the wall with it.
yeah. When the big heavy beaker like yeah. And you say he was a water officer, so what area did he look
Up at
after?
the waterworks at the top of the road, just over
Just
from where you
up the
stay.
hill, yeah. So was he based there all the time, or no?
More or less, aye.
So was there like a sort of building for the workers to be in? Because there's not that
Well,
much
he
up
was
there.
just on his own, actually. What they called the filters was further down, you know, just down the way now. But they had, well, I would say the main building for them was up at the top of the hill, so to speak, within the waterworks, like.
Yeah. Fascinating. You mentioned about brownies. That's what I was going to. Did you go to the brownies or guides? And where would that have been?
That was in the school.
So it was in Arncroach itself.
Yes.
Very good. And how many children would go to brownies?
I wasn't in the brownies because we just came along when I was
older.
9.
Yes.
And I
I
went
would
to
say
the
roughly
guides.
about 12.
And then the guides, did that just follow on after brownies? And,
Yes.
Yeah. And was it a different leader or was it the same person?
Well, we had Mrs. Landale for that was the brownies, and then we had Miss Bell, Liza Bell. And latterly we
the
had
guides were just in the school, in the playground, in the shed. There were no hall.
Yeah.
I mean, we were just in the shed.
I thought something else. What about things like your clothes? Where did you get your clothes from? Because I know nowadays you get them sort of off the peg anywhere. But where would you go shopping if you needed to get clothes or new shoes for school?
Well, it would be Anstruther, but what could I say? Well, we went to, well, that was later on. We would go to Leaving. That would be the nearest.
So to the co-op.
No, Wilkes and
Wilkes
Leaving.
for shoes.
For shoes.
Wilkes for shoes.
And what about, because I know that they used to have like a grocer's, because what shops were in the village? That was one of the other questions.
Well, there was the post office, obviously, that was the sub-post office, and then there was a shop on the corner, Christie, Mrs Christie had that, and then down at the bottom was terraces.
So when you say on the corner, where?
Ray John
just at
Mackenzie stays.
what we call Black's Corner,
That
just
was
on the
another
corner, that
grocer's
was.
shop.
Ah,
It was licensed.
And then the one down terraces, what did they sell?
Well,
Groceries.
they were a groceries, because they
So,
had a van that went out and about.
Yeah, no, I remember.
And boots and shoes.
Aye,
Boots
they
and shoes.
did boots and shoes as well.
So you had 2 grocers shops in the village.
Mm-hmm.
And Ella Henderson's.
Mm-hmm.
That was
And-
before our time. Well, before mine. You mind the Ella Henderson?
Well, just vaguely.
And what about the size of the village? Because I know there's a few new houses. How big was the village when you were growing up?
Well, as I say, there was a house in the corner there on its own, and then there was quite a big garden, and then this is before you come to the corners, and then there was one house, and then what we call this, well, it was the stables long ago apparently, and then, well, Christie had the shop on the corner, and then there, well, Bella Henderson to begin with was next door. I mean, she sold papers and whatever. Then there was, well, I think there was a house next to her, but then I can't really recall it. I have a photograph there, and then there was 2 houses at the very end. As you go round the corner.
Go round which corner?
Just at where the grocer's shop was. Just before you go up to Blinkbonny Road now,
Right,
just at that corner.
okay. And what about the houses along the Blinkbonny Road? Were they there?
No.
Well, no,
Where Jeanette is, that they were built.
they were agricultural houses.
They were agricultural houses, and they were really built for the men coming back from the war.
That was actually, which I didn't mind, but I mean John minds, but that was a farm.
And he says that's where the first kiting rink was.
That's right,
The
which
kiting rink was
I didn't
where
mind about
Jeanette's
either.
houses is.
And with the kiting ring that you said, is that like quoits or something? Horseshoes?
That's what my dad played, yeah.
Can you just tell us a little bit about that? Was that something that was played on a regular basis? Because I know there was competitions, wasn't there? There was
My
Yeah.
dad was a Scottish champion.
Twice a week they played. Well, I think they had about a dozen people maybe played, but there were just about 4 or 5 of them really that took a right interest in it, you know.
And how did what is the game? How, because I know quoits with the hoops and you have to get them on.
Aye, well, there's 2
post.
patches of clay. Well, I didn't know the length of the actual, I mean, John there again would have been better. And you just flung their kites to go into the clay, the nearest.
On the pin.
They were on a pin.
And then it was whoever had the highest score was the winner.
That's right.
Yeah. And was there like an annual competition, or did it just?
Well, I went
'cause
to
my dad
various
says he
places
remembers
round
coming to
about
watch it.
here. Well, as I say, St Andrews and
The games
Cooper.
usually.
Aye, there was games.
Games, and they
Cooper
had
games, and
points.
but it was really a mining hobby, so to speak. And I mean, it was really through the west, and that was the main place for them, quite a bit.
Renton, and they used to go to Renton.
And there used to be
they-
earth games,
Earth.
what they called. There used to be a bus, and we used to all go to Earth Games,
Uh-huh.
a day out.
Uh-huh.
But Dad travelled down to England and that to play.
Oh, very good. Uh-huh. And what about mining? Was there any sort of mines locally at all?
Peter, there would
Well,
be mines.
aye.
And what would they be mining for? Was it shale or coal?
I think so.
Uh-huh. And what about, cause if you were born in 1944, you maybe don't remember the sort of the war very well, but do you remember sort of rationing and things like that after the
Aye, I
war?
mind Mum having a ration book and that.
And what sort of things were rationed then? Was it everything was still rationed or just specific?
Well, I think fruit was a thing that it was really rationed, but I mean everything was really, you know what I mean?
And what about like sort of growing things? Because I know my granddad used to grow
Oh,
lots
well,
of
my dad
vegetables.
used to
Did,
all the vegetables in the garden. Aye.
and would that sort of last you the majority of the year what you grew yourself? Yeah. And what about things like meat? Did you keep any? My gran used to keep pigs and rabbits.
When you lived on the farm, I mean,
When
you
you're
were
ready.
lucky. You got your potatoes and your milk, and that was part of your wage. And you had your house was free rent.
So the houses, if they were a tied cottage to the farm, you didn't have to pay rent at
No,
all.
you'd no rent to pay, and you got your potatoes and your milk.
Very good.
But then, unfortunately, my dad died very suddenly down at the farm, and I mean, Mum had to vacate the cottage. So, I mean,
So what happened then? Because she obviously sort of stayed in Arncroach, did she? When she had to vacate the cottage?
well, my gran had just died in at St Andrews, so she went into her house, but then she moved to London Links, just to be between sort of my sister and I.
And was this when you were older? Were you sort of still living in Arncroach then, or did you
Yes,
did you move with your
that
mum?
was Dad died in 63. No, 83. Dad died in 83.
And which the still Balcormal farm he was working in then? Yeah. And how old would you have been?
63.
So, oh, he was 63. So
Yeah.
he's young, isn't he?
So,
And what about things like saying about health? If you needed to see a doctor or a GP, what did you do to see a doctor?
Well, the doctor actually came up to see we used to leave our sort of ailments at the shop in the corner, and that's where he found out that was Dr. Page at that time. He was the first doctor.
And where would he be based?
Pittenweem.
Down in Pittenweem. And what, he came up on a regular basis or
Yes,
every day or
was it Monday and Thursday or something?
aye,
Something
twice a
like
week.
twice a week? So before he came, you just sort of told. And what would happen if you were poorly in between those days? Would you have to go down to Pittenweem to see him or
Well, it would depend.
phoned? Yeah. 'Cause I think they did a lot more home visits.
Oh,
then,
yes.
didn't they?
Mhm.
Well, we were the Ely doctor. We were
That's right.
Dr. Gray Ely.
Yeah.
But, I mean, if you had anything wrong, you just phoned the doctor and he came up. No questions
I
asked.
mean, Dr. Kennedy used to come up on his bicycle and
Really? Seemed to fit in those days. And do you remember any, apart from COVID, do you remember them being any sort of major epidemics or illnesses like whooping cough or diphtheria or anything going round when you were,
no, I mean,
Some normal children's
sort of
measles.
measles?
aye, and whooping cough and that, just the general illnesses.
And did you get vaccinations for, I don't know when vaccinations started, for whooping cough and chicken pox?
We got a vaccination at the way.
Aye.
When you were at secondary school. Yeah. And what about things like dentists?
Well, I had a school dentist. That was when we were at primary school.
Come round in a van.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that horrible drill with the cables that about that van.
No, I never went to the... Oh, you were never at the dentist unless you had toothache, to be quite honest.
So, how do you think the village has changed since you were younger? Do you think it's changed for the better or maybe changed for the worst?
Well, you knew everybody in the village.
Everybody knew. Well, of course, in the days you didn't lock your doors or anything, and you knew everybody. But
Nowadays,
I mean, now, well,
we don't know everybody.
it's just like everywhere else. You don't
We
know.
don't know everybody.
Yeah. And I think there's a lot more, like you see people walking around a lot more, which maybe they didn't been doing back in the day. With regards to sort of group things that go on, because I know there was the Literary Society, there still is the Literary Society, and the rural. What did you ladies join them quite early in the day, or did you wait until you were a bit older to join things like that, or were there other groups in the village that you used to?
The rural we joined whenever we could.
Mm-hmm.
We were 13 or 14.
Really? Oh my goodness.
So we've been rural members for
Donkey's years.
donkey's years.
And with the rural, how do you feel that that's changed? Obviously, the members nowadays, there's a lot fewer
Very
members,
depleted,
and they're a lot maybe more mature. They're not 13 anyway. No. So how do you feel that that's changed?
Well, there's just no new one, young ones, I should say,
Join.
interested at all.
Yeah.
That
And what kind of things did you do in the rural then? Was it still sort of similar? You had your competitions, and at 13 you were taking part in the competitions as well?
We were in plays and that.
And with regards to going back to the schools, do you remember your school teachers? Do you remember anything about the school teachers? Did you have a headmaster or a headmistress and then teachers, or did the teachers, were they the headmistresses and the headmasters as well?
well, primary school it was Miss Bond we had to begin with, and then she left to get married. So then it was actually her sister-in-law that Mrs. Bond that taught us before we went to wedding.
And she taught all the classes, or just because you said there was 2 classes?
The big room and the wee room.
There was a Mrs. Lee's. Do you remember? Aye. She taught in the primary.
So was it divided into sort of, like you say, the big room and the little room?
It was a partition.
Right, okay. And was it sort of set ages in one room and set ages in the other room? Yeah. So the very young were kept separate to the sort of slightly older children. Yeah. And what do you remember about sort of your school days? Did you enjoy going to school?
Well, I suppose so. Yeah.
And did you have exams? Did you have an 11+ exam or anything? And was that compulsory forever? Because I think that just stopped the year that I reached 11. Thankfully, we would never have passed it anyway. But,
back in the day when John was at the Arncroach school, he had to do his last year down in Sillerdyke because Miss Patterson obviously wasn't qualified enough to give them their 11+. So they had all to go down to Sillerdyke for the last year.
And if people passed their 11 plus, where would they go? Would it be up to St Andrews? No.
No, went to
just
the
the
Wade.
Wade.
So it was still at
National
Wade.
level.
Yeah, yeah. And did they have separate teachers for the ones that had passed their 11 plus? No.
Well, it would determine whether you went into
Into an
A,
A
B,
class or a
A, B,
B or
C,
a
or
C.
D, or
Okay.
whatever.
Or whatever.
And like at break time, were you allowed out of the school? I know we weren't allowed out of the school. Well, beside you, if you went out the school, you were seen outside the school. But were you allowed out of the school at break time to go down?
Well, there was a playground.
Hmm.
Just
So you just stayed in the playground, yeah. And what about sort of playing hockey and things like that? Did they have hockey matches
well, that was at
Down at the
secondary
Wade.
school. That was
Down
the
at the
Wade.
Wade.
down at the
Didn't have
Wade?
anything like that.
Oh, with
And-
nothing like that up
No.
here.
Right, okay, yeah. And
We were pretty raw when we went down to the Wade.
Country pumpkins.
and what time did school start? Was it 9
9
o'clock?
o'clock.
9.
Mhm.
And what age was it? From 5 or?
5.
Five.
Yeah.
And then what time did you finish at the end of the day?
4:45, was it? No, about
Pardon?
4:45, about that. The wee ones got out at 3.
Aye.
Aye.
The older ones got held behind. What about any major events, celebrations in the village? Do you remember the coronation? I don't know, maybe a bit young to remember the Queen's coronation. Was there
Well, in
any?
mind though, going up to the Jewel House, and it was a wee TV. We had to look at a black and white TV, sitting on bales, and it was really cold. It was a cold day, windy. But that was
So who stayed in Drill House then?
that was the Mr. Birrell, the Mr. and Mrs. Birrell.
And was that the main TV in the village? Nobody else in the village had a telly then?
Well, for that occasion, yeah.
Yeah. Very good. And did you have a street party or anything like that at all?
Well, was you here when
No, we just came in November. We
right.
weren't,
So
we
we
were
had a
still
sort
at
of,
New Gilson at the coronation.
and we got all dressed up. I have a wee photograph there of and the adults were dressed up as well. It was quite an event.
Very good.
I just minded going to the bonfire at night up at Woodside at New Gilson.
Oh, right.
There was a
aye.
bonfire up there, and I just sort of minded that, but I didn't mind much through the day.
No, that's good. Anything else you can think of, Trevor? Well, I'm probably exhausted the questions that I had.
No, I think if you just do a sort of a wrap, you know, a conclusion, sort of a something to have at the end of it, you know, just sort of the thank you bit.
Okay.
Then we can talk about how we might sort of make something of this when I'm coming to edit it.
Is there anything else that you ladies would like to say that I've maybe not asked you or remembered to ask?
I mean, when we had whist drives and things like that, there
Whist
was
and domino
always a
drives.
dance. Always a dance after anything we had. Social, like the literary and the twist drives and socials, and you always had a dance after
And that would have been in the hall,
In the
church hall.
These was weekly, the
And they had
whist
a
and
wee
domino
whist,
drives.
and that was to convert the to make the church hall. It was a church when we first came along. It was a church,
Church,
with the pews and everything, and then it was made into a church hall.
And you say about the whist drive, were the whist drives to sort of raise money to convert it into a hall? No.
Aye.
Yeah.
That's right.
Very good. Yeah.
They were a Monday night, weren't they?
What about things happening on the land? Were there still a lot of horses working the land? Or did people have tractors?
Well, it was all tractors when Dad came along to Cornwall. But the horses
But
were
the
just
horse-
being
Aye,
phased out.
there
at
was
that
horses
time.
along at
Easter
Easter
Kelly.
Kelly. You tend to forget a wee bit.
No, you've done very well. But anyway, I'd just like to say thank you very much, ladies. It's been very enjoyable listening to your reminiscing. Thank you very much.